Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show. I am the Dude.
And I am Grim, and today we are very excited to be discussing Innerspeaker by Tame Impala, their first studio album, and I might say my favorite.
Ooh, your favorite?
Actually, not even might. That's a definitive. That is a definitive.
I thought you were going to say Slow Rush, but we'll get into that. Yeah, no. Well, I think it's definitely my favorite, our favorite. These are the first ones we heard. It was, Innerspeaker and Lonerism. Those were the first two. I think I listened to both of those like simultaneously, and those are the ones I really got hooked into.
I had Innerspeaker for just a while. I had been jamming with these guys, and they kind of got me into that like early, and it was like the music that I had been waiting to hear. You know what I mean?
Because your whole life.
Well, I don't know about my whole life, but at that time, like for a new band to come out with stuff that sounded like that, and then I read about it and I'm like, oh my God, dude, they're kids.
Yeah.
Because I was like 30 at the time, and these guys are like in their low 20s, and I'm like, dude, you win, because this is awesome stuff for anybody to be coming out with.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Tame Impala is it is Kevin Parker. Like it is him.
I know, I didn't know that. I figured it was a band, right?
Yeah, I mean that I kind of did too at first, and obviously when he plays live, he plays with a band. We talked about it a little bit on when we did Lonerism. He does have a couple guys that will sort of, they've put in little parts here and there, like on a song or two. I think there was like one or two guys, and I have their names in my notes down a little farther. But yeah, it's pretty much, it's just him. But kind of what he said was, it was like there was a group of guys in Australia basically that they all just kind of had their own projects and their own bands.
Which is a lot like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, honestly, because like those guys all have side projects and stuff too, but that was the thing that made it. And same with Tame Impala. Yeah.
Well, he said even too, he's like, we're all kind of, a circle of friends. And he's like, I don't feel bad doing the recording by myself because I don't expect, that I have input in their bands. He's I'm doing what I'm doing. They're doing what they're doing. And, he's just like, Tame Impala is just Kevin Parker's project. Everyone has a project. So,
and it just so happens that his project is pretty damn awesome.
It's pretty badass. Well, I'm sure you read about sort of the recording of this album, and it sounds absolutely beautiful.
Sounds like
amazing.
Dream. Like everything you would want to do in recording an album. I mean, you have access to this house with a 180-degree view of the Indian Ocean. And I really enjoyed, I'm glad they did this too, just a lot of the footage that was available of that. I mean, that is so cool to be able to see what he was doing or they were doing, because there were other people there.
Yep.
I mean, that's really cool.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. And dude, there was like no internet, no phone reception, no TVs. Just completely kind of, complete solitude pretty much. And the way I think it was initially reported, though, is that, it was a mansion. And he's like, actually, it was like a big wooden house, and the roof leaked, the power cut out. So like he had his, I think he had an 8-track machine there. Yeah. And he was like, he would lose, it would cut out in the middle of a recording. He lost tracks and stuff like that. Dude. So it wasn't like this.
It wasn't a total dream.
Yeah, in its own way, I'm sure. Looking back on it, it was a really romantic period for him and for the recording. But having to go through that, he was like, we put plastic coverings and stuff over equipment so that if stuff leaked on it, it wouldn't short circuit and fry out.
Now that would be a nightmare to me. The equipment part,
it'd be awful. It'd be awful. But apparently this house kind of had a history of people recording music there and just kind of raves and drugs and stuff like that. So it was sort of, I guess, this kind of party house. Yeah. And the people who rented it to him, I guess, sort of knew that, they seemed to be okay with it being used for that.
Yeah, sure.
One of the cool things, though, that I found out was that he actually, during the pandemic, bought this house.
Now that's awesome.
which is really cool because I mean I'm sure he's got a good pocket full of coin.
Yeah, he could probably fix the roof at this point.
I bet he could fix the roof. Maybe proper electricity. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, in looking at the videos, I don't think the house seemed like shitty or anything. I mean, it just it was what it was. Maybe it had fell into kind of a state of disrepair to a degree.
Sure.
Because, dude, if you don't have someone who is constantly maintaining a vacation home, they will do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been on an episode of Cribs, but it would be pretty cool, I bet. Just the whole idea. I mean, I think a lot of people out there who are, you know, musicians have this. Well, a lot of people have the idea initially. I think you first want to get into the studio, right? You're like, I want to be in the studio because that's where
the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
And then you hear about all these bands being like, I want to get out of the studio. You know, I mean, the Stones did it with Exile on Main Street.
Dude, Radiohead did it with OK Computer.
And Kid A. And STP did it with, I believe, with Purple, if not Purple Tiny Music. Oh, it must have been Purple because there was that video of them playing Pretty Penny.
Yes.
Recording in the house.
It looks like it was a living room or something.
Right. Yeah. Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? With Blood Sugar Sex Magik. So, I mean, there's just so many stories of that. And it's pretty cool, man.
Well, this idea that when you're doing something like this and you're putting so much of yourself into it, I can see the real draw into something where, like, I don't necessarily want to leave. I will want to stop working and take a break and go to sleep or hang out and kind of party or whatever. But, like, I want to be able to jump back into it whenever I want. And that's really cool. And, you know, another thing too to mention that I would say about this is Dave Friedman mixed the album, which he did a fantastic job of.
As you would expect.
But, dude, Kevin Parker, I mean, produced this. And for someone who doesn't have a history of, you know, producing albums in big name studios and stuff, for him to just, like, hole up in a house and come out with this album, dude, you got to give him credit. That is incredible. Like it is. I think as I read, let me see. It looks like Pitchfork named it the 83rd best album of the decade so far when it came out, or in 2014 is when they named it that.
Oh, okay.
I think it's better than that myself.
Yeah, I have a tough time because I think I like Lonerism better, but this one, it's just, but yeah, this one's just so good. I mean, to me, I kind of think of them since I got introduced to them both at the same time. Those were the two that were out. I kind of think of them as almost one and the same, even though I know they're not, and very different, just very different, but I just think of them as one and the same. I really, really do. But again, going back to the sort of the house thing, and like you were talking about the production, cool thing about a house is you hear about people recording in different rooms and different places and everything. But dude, he recorded some stuff on the balcony, just like overlooking the ocean. Like, how badass is that? Right?
Well, I did see that, but it's funny because I thought about that and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. How do you not hear any, background noise from the ocean or wind? But he's like out there playing electric guitar tracks, which is great because you get the feeling of the air going in, but ultimately your mic is up to an amp. So like,
right. That's
your recording take is crisp and clean. However, you have this amazing like vibe that you would never get elsewhere.
Right. It's not like you're playing your acoustic and that's mic'd right up front and there's the ocean breeze and stuff.
You can just run you can run a cable into the house and just have have a blanket over the mic and that thing's as quiet as can be.
Well, here's the thing. Even if he did record outside with the mic and everything, he's got so many noises, crazy synth sounds. You probably wouldn't even notice most of it. So,
Now, one thing that I wanted to mention that I think is interesting is that he had some sort of a digital, I think it did mention an 8-track.
8-track machine, yeah.
It is kind of hard for me in many ways to believe that a lot of these songs were only 8 tracks because they sound incredible. I know from having a digital 8-track myself, a lot of times you can record a certain amount of things and get them sounding like you want and bounce them down into like 2 tracks or something and then build on that. But man, to think that limitation existed and then what came out of it is even more incredible, honestly.
Right. Well, it does say that he recorded he recorded at this house, but then there's a place called Poon's Head Studio, and actually at the Parker's house, I think at his parents' house even, he recorded some there. So I'm wondering, maybe even if he went to the studio, if he has the 8-track, he could have dumped that off, maybe dumped it off into the computer, and then, maybe you lay on some tracks on top of that. So if anybody out there knows like anything more about that, definitely let us know, because
I definitely have done that.
Yeah. It's always interesting to hear how different people, you have this 8-track or 16-track, whatever the tracks you have, and all the creative ways of trying to like get around it and everything. And you really have to think through the process. Like, okay, I have these tracks and I can bounce these down, but I can't really go back to them. So I have to be very selective about what ones you're going to do. There's a whole progression to it.
Dude, I will tell you that like, just the idea of signal routing, like how you're routing all your inputs into a board and how that goes into your record. I mean, dude, that is kind of an art in and of itself, because if you don't have your signal routing right, you can really blow a recording like real quick.
I bet.
So
one of our favorite guys, and you mentioned Dave Friedman, mixed the album, and the thing is Kevin Parker, he intended to kind of record it and mix it, produce it, do everything himself, but he said that he couldn't get it the explosive sound that he wanted. And so he was a little hesitant to, hey, I've just spent so much time and energy and blood and sweat and everything recording, producing, and getting it to where it's at. Handing that over to somebody is a very, not to say that, hey, if Friedman did it and he didn't like it, he wouldn't have had to, keep it. But, just handing your canvas over to somebody and be like, hey, polish this up. I don't know, man.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I that was one thing I was debating on what to talk about here. And I had different ideas before watching those YouTube videos of him recording it. Mm-hmm. And listening to the album, in my head, what I heard was a lot of analog tape saturation. And I was going to like make this whole example of it and play examples. The reason I'm not is because I think that the stuff that I hear as analog tape saturation is probably most likely either done through like outboard analog gear where you kind of jack it up and it's not necessarily a tape machine, or it's done with plugins, because if he recorded everything on some sort of a digital 8-track, you cannot get that analog tape grit with a digital machine. The distortion is not the same. So I again, if anyone knows, I would love to have insight as to how they got that sound, because to me the sound that they got is really pure. But I don't think it was because it was done on tape. Yeah. Oh, why do they have to make this stuff so pure?
Make it so pure. Well, dude, so one of the things that I thought was kind of funny is, so iTunes accidentally released the album and they made it available to buy instead of pre-order. So it was kind of released earlier than it was supposed to be. Also, there became a leaked copy of it on the internet, but it was like a month earlier, but it was really poor. And Kevin Parker was like, the thing that he was actually upset about is that not that it was leaked, but that it was leaked in bad quality.
Yeah, sure.
He was like, it's like, hey, at least if you're going to leak it, could you at least hi-fi? Come on.
Yeah.
Right.
This is high fidelity. The highest possible fidelity. Is what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would irritate the hell out of me too. And I get his point because it's not like the album wasn't going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But damn, at least put out the good version.
Well, dude, so he initially wanted this album to be a double album, but he said he lacked the motivation to make it.
I do have the vinyl right here, and the vinyl is a double vinyl.
Well, it is a double vinyl. Yeah. But so I guess what happened was, though, again, I feel like he had a little bad luck. iTunes released it early. A month before, the audio was released early, had poor quality. Also, many of the demos were leaked onto YouTube in unmixed form.
Oh, so interesting.
And they were actually apparently going to end the album if it was going to be a double. They were going to end it with a cover song. What is it? These All for Everything by Fleetwood Mac.
Well, hold on though, and I don't know, but I could say that Fleetwood Mac went through two very different phases. There is we'll say the Rumors Fleetwood Mac, and there is Fleetwood Mac prior to that. And right. Fleetwood Mac prior to that was like a nasty blues band. And I heard some of their stuff on a local radio station a while ago, and I remember going onto the internet and I'm like, I have to know what is playing right now because this is awesome shit.
Really? Wow.
And it was Fleetwood Mac from their first album. And this is what's great about it, dude. They have two self-titled albums.
I know.
Two of them.
I know.
Yeah. And it was from their first self-titled album.
That's pretty cool.
It's real gritty. So I would hope that it was more than likely from that era.
Right. So a lot of this, there was a really great Kevin Parker interview, and it was, if you have Apple Music on, I believe this is where I heard it. It was either on Apple Music or maybe it was Spotify, or I don't remember what it was. But if you look for extras and stuff on iTunes or whatever, they have this audio interview, and basically they play the majority of the album, but then in between songs, they'll have this interview exchange. And he says, who
the interviewer is?
I forget. He was Australian, shocker.
Zane Lowe? Oh,
I don't know.
He's from New Zealand, but
okay. Well, it could have been New Zealand. Sorry. But dude, he basically said that, this album, he had spent the last 5 years smoking weed in the back of they call it a share house, but I imagine a house, with roommates and stuff. And, he was just he said cripplingly shy and musically arrogant. And he cut out, basically he stripped away everyone in his life that basically wasn't about music, or it was just kind of an extra or something like that. He was just so incredibly focused. And his life was really about writing music or writing songs and making music. So it's he just kind of said, you know what, screw everybody. I'm going to keep my circle very small, and I'm just going to do what I want to do. And he does talk a lot about, I think, if anybody wants to watch our Lonerism episode, it's called Lonerism, but he talks about when they were on tour for that, he almost didn't know how to interact with other people and other bands and stuff because he's just he's just not a social, outgoing person.
Well, I could get that because I watched an interview with him, I think well after Currents and stuff was done. I think he was talking with Rick Rubin maybe on the Broken Record podcast, and he kind of indicated that there was this bit of social anxiety and you know.
Well,
but it worked out for him. Shit.
Absolutely. Well, he does smoke a ton of weed, it sounds like. And
good for him.
Interestingly enough, though, for this album, this is kind of funny. He's like, I never got stoned to write music. It was just getting stoned was just something we did all the time anyways. We just,
and then you just wrote music.
Just happened to be stoned. It's not like, hey, I'm going to get stoned and write music. I just happened to be like this. So,
I've been there.
Yeah.
Now, dude, I want to talk too, in briefly, but about the artwork, because I think I've always thought the artwork for this album was just incredible. And that was one of the things that he relinquished from his own tasks and had someone else do. In this case, and bear with me, Leif Podhajki.
Sounds great. I'll go with that.
But it's interesting because the image is actually of somewhere in the Great Smoky Mountains of North Carolina, but it has what they call the Drosty effect, where it's like a recursion of the image and it just goes, and they compared it to Pink Floyd's Ummagumma.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think
makes sense.
I think the artwork for the album is beautiful. And it was like,
oh, so cool.
You know, I had been listening to the album for a long time, but then when I saw the artwork, I'm like, that's absolutely what it should be.
Sold. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm in.
It's perfect.
Hooked. Well, Graham, I think we should probably get into the tracks here.
Yeah, we should.
But yes.
It also won an area award for best cover art. So
it won several awards.
Yeah. It's not very late. So
nice plug. All right.
Got your Wayne's World plug in.
Oh, got it in there. Graham, some things just aren't meant to be, right? It is not meant to be. Track number 1. What are your takeaways? What do you think? What do you like?
Well, it's interesting to me. I like the song. I think it's a good way to start the album. I love how the drums come in, and musically, I think it's great. But lyrically, I do feel like it kind of touches on this whole bit of like kind of making yourself a little isolated, because it sounds to me like he's talking about a potential relationship with a girl that's not going to work. What does he say? She doesn't like sex up on her feet and sitting around smoking weed.
Like, yeah. He's like, you know, I mean, look, if you can find that person, then good on you, mate.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, she also may not have like what I'd call a lot of career prospects either. So, I mean, you know.
Well, yeah, it is interesting because there's a line in here that I took away, and I didn't realize this, but apparently I believe his father passed away from cancer. And happened pretty quickly. And there's a line that says, and I thought they could cure his disease, but in all honesty, he didn't have a hope in hell.
Damn.
Now we'll never see him move. And
dude, that like brings a whole new perspective to that.
It does. And I never made that correlation. And I'm fairly certain it was his dad who passed away. You know, correct. I'm sure you will correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it sounds like it. Man, I feel really bad.
That's heartbreaking.
Gosh, maybe it was. I think it was his dad. It could have been a friend. I hope I didn't get it wrong.
Well, either way, I mean, you know, we can't be
someone who's close to him.
Yeah, someone who's close to him. We can't be expected to be experts at everything, but
all right, all the time.
You know, with that said, and understanding that we're not experts at everything, I mean, give us a break and maybe go ahead and
like, subscribe, and comment below.
Okay. That would be really nice.
You know, there's a lot of albums that we do, and there's a lot of like facts and figures to get straight, and you know, we're not perfect.
And we figure you guys, you know, who are super fans, like, man, you got to know this stuff.
Oh yeah, so throw us a bone.
Please let us know. Just be nice about it. You know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, desire be, desire go. Dude, this one it has a little more grit, I think.
I know, and this is like that tape saturation sound, man. I mean, all the way.
Yeah, guitar's got a lot of fuzz on it. It does slip into sort of a dreamy sound, which is sort of
a lot of them do though.
Which is sort of how I feel like I characterize this album. It's just this super psychedelic, dreamy kind of I don't know. You know, flowy album, and it's great. It's got some really good transitions, and you know, one thing he does in a lot of his songs, just talking about the album in general, is the way he layers things over each other. Like all of a sudden, it's just like there is so much really going on. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
And there was a EP. I need to look up what the name of that EP was, but
I believe it's self-titled.
No, it's Sundown Syndrome, I think.
Oh, that one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I want to say on Sundown Syndrome, he had a few songs, I think, off of this album, but Desire Be, Desire Go is one of them. But I think it said that he re-recorded this, if I'm not mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong there. But Yeah, I mean, and the other one on that one that I wish they would have redone for this is, dude, Half Full Glass of Wine. God, is that a good friggin' song.
And I think he even said in one of the interviews or something I read, a lot of people actually think that song is on this album.
It should be.
Because it's one that so many people know.
Well, yeah, and see that one, to me, I don't understand how that wasn't recorded on tape, because he has this thing where he's hitting the hi-hat and it's really fast, and there's this guitar part that's really fast, and then everything slows down, like you take the tape machine and you hit half speed, and it just and then you get into the groove. And when I heard that, I was like, dude, all right, you win. That is incredible.
Yeah.
So it should have been on the album, but wasn't. And honestly, now that we're talking about it, if you look at the Innerspeaker 10th anniversary release, I don't think it's on that one either. Which is
with all the extra tracks and stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they have the Wave House Live Jam, and LP4 side G is demos, but they don't have that one, which is
crazy.
Like, I would argue one of the best songs they did. But anyways, we continue.
Alter Ego, Graham. Alter Ego. Dude, this song, it starts off kind of like with a funny little synth sound.
Yeah.
And it was interesting when I was listening to it, though. For some reason, I got really focused on the drums, and the beat reminded actually me a lot of Gotta Be Above It, which is the first song off of Lonerism. And dude, definitely, lots of trippy synth and shakers, and has like a long intro, but man, it's I find with their songs, again, his songs, whatever, sometimes you can get into a trance, and I think this is one of those ones where I definitely get into a trance.
For sure.
There's also so there's sort of a lo-fi element. Obviously, we talked about how the album was recorded, but in this track, I feel like it kind of comes out a little bit, but it works really well. So that's why it's not, you're not like, oh man, this is, we recorded this down in Wayne's basement, although that's not Wayne's basement.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the sentiment of it, because he was like, I don't have the lyrics in front of me. I should have pulled them up, but he is something to the effect of like, don't bother telling me that you're all you're meant to be. I mean, which is nice, because it kind of like speaks of this idea of like growth throughout your life.
Right.
Which I think is pretty cool.
It is cool. So dude, with Lucidity, I kind of wanted to talk about the music video. Isn't that, dude, it's hard to watch. It's very disorienting. And if people get dizzy, I recommend just... Do
they put one of those warnings on the front of it?
I don't think they do. I don't think it was like a seizure thing, but they definitely, it's... At first I was like, oh man, how do they do it? And then, you kind of learn, it's basically one of those big balloons that goes up into space, and it had a camera on it. I don't know what kind of camera. It could have been a GoPro or something. I mean, you can tell it has sort of like a fisheye lens,
like a weather balloon.
It's bended around the corners. Something like that. And so it is like it's a cool video, but it is definitely hard to watch sometimes. I wouldn't watch it on repeat like Michel Gondry's.
I understand that. For this one, this was there were a handful of songs that when I first listened to this album that they grabbed me, like Desire Be, Desire Go, and this one too, because it has that real like analog saturated kind of nasty fuzzy sound. But dude, I also felt like when I heard it, I'm like, man, this guy kind of has this like reminiscence of John Lennon in his vocals.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I think a lot of people said that. It's not like I'm just, I didn't just like...
Oh my God, I never thought...
drop some huge knowledge on people.
Whoa.
But this was one that I think really, when I heard it, I'm like, man, that is... Wow.
Well, moving on, you were just talking about some of the songs that caught you, and the next two really caught me. This first one being Why Don't You Make Up Your Mind? That when I started listening to it, really, really got to me. I think
give me a sign.
The psychedelic synth and some of those guitar licks, man. And it's interesting talking about his vocals a little bit again. Like they're on this song is very thick with a lot of echo, and that's something he does. And I think he talks about, again, being shy and I think a little introverted. I think he's been kind of quoted as saying that, you know, his singing, he was a little sort of kind of embarrassed about it. You know, he's not a huge projector. If you've seen him live and stuff, I remember the first couple times I saw him live, and I was like, oh man, I wish I could hear him better, hear his voice better. Yeah. And it's not that it wasn't mixed wrong, but it was just, you know, there's so much going on, such a full song, full sound. But
if you have somebody who has I don't want to say like a quiet voice, but a voice that just doesn't project as well, and they're playing rock music, it's hard to get that to blast out with the rest of the band without, you know, some nasty feedback or something.
Right. Well, dude, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Sometimes I think it was in this song I noticed it. Sometimes I can't tell if, I mean, there's a lot of synth, but I'm like, I can't tell if it's like him playing a guitar through some sort of effects pedal or if it's a crazy synth. I'm like, what the hell is that? It sounds great, but I don't know what it is.
I think there's kind of a mixture of a lot of it. When I watch the videos, I mean, it's obvious that he had a lot of stuff, but he didn't have like some huge modular Moog or some big thing. And the thing is, with some of those pedals, you can get a lot of really interesting synth-like sounds out of your guitar.
Sure.
And I feel like, especially at this time, I mean, now I think he's moved over more to the synth kind of realm overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at this time, I would be willing to wager that a lot of those sounds were made on the guitar. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Sure.
That's just a guess, an estimation.
Yes. Well, I'd like to move on to Solitude Is Bliss. I think for me, I think this might be my favorite song off the album.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Okay.
I just love the opening guitar part and guitar riffs. I just think it's really, really cool, man. I really
do like
the
song a lot. The drum has a nice way of really tightening it up. You know, once it kind of comes into the main verses, I think the way it tightens up is really nice.
Definitely.
And I just love that line, company's okay, solitude is bliss. And I kind of get it because, dude, as much as I like people and I feel like kind of extroverted, like I can certainly just want to just shut the curtains and tune everything out and just be in this room with equipment and like just work on stuff. So I get it.
Definitely. Or record podcasts. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the next song, and this one, I put an asterisk by it because it wasn't on the original CD. This is the song Island Walking. It actually wasn't on the original CD. But here's the thing. If you put it in your computer, apparently, a web page would pop up that was that played this song. It featured this track. And then also Live at the Corner, which I guess is a live show. So the Corner is the Corner Hotel in Melbourne. Okay. Must have played a show there, and then also had some music videos. So it was kind of like an extra sort of track. And now
I'll be honest. Oh, go on.
No. Yeah, I was gonna say like it's a really good song, and I think I always figured it was on the album because every time I listened to it, like this is just on the iTunes version.
Oh, so that's interesting because I've heard it, but I don't use iTunes Music, so therefore I don't hear this when I listen to the album. And I can tell you it is not on the LP.
It's not. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, one thing about it, and
no, it's not. Yeah,
one thing that I really like about this song is there's a part where, dude, and again, this will go back to 60s psychedelic, man. Psychedelic. Dude, really has some Cream influence. And
dude. Okay.
It's kind of that nasty guitar stuff that Clapton would do sometimes, and it's got a lot of that influence to it.
The woman tone.
The woman tone?
Yeah, the woman tone. Look up this
after the podcast.
This guitar tone called the woman tone. I wish I would have got my Les Paul out because on Gibson guitars, and I think in the video, there's a video on YouTube where Clapton describes what the woman tone is. But they use these type of pickups called humbucking pickups, and they push a little hotter than what we would call single coil pickups, which are on like a Fender Strat or Telecaster, like those kind of guitars. And so what Clapton would do is there's two pickups typically. I mean, some have three, but most of them there's two. There's one by the bridge, and that has kind of like the higher, more shrill tones. And there's one by the neck, and that has like kind of the fatter tones. And what he would do is switch it all the way to the neck pickup, but then get rid of one of the tone sets. So it was like a mixture of taking that pickup but trying to push the tones out of it that like weren't inherently in it. Right. And it would make that sound that you hear in like Disraeli Gears a lot, with like Outside Women Blues and like that. I can't really describe it, but look up this video called The Woman Tone. And it's so cool.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But maybe don't look that up on a work computer because you never know what's going to show up. So
that's true.
Be forewarned.
Maybe you end up with like safe for work porn, which is also funny.
Exactly. So, Jeremy Storm, which is an instrumental, Grim. Now, one thing about this song is I feel like I hear some wind noises in it, and obviously that could be a synth, or probably is a synth. But then it got me thinking. I'm like, all right, if you were going to record wind, how do you record wind? Because wind and microphones don't really like play very nice together.
Well, yeah, it's the only thing I could think of is if in this house, you could record wind from a microphone pointing outside, but not necessarily being exposed to the wind. So as the wind goes by certain things, you get that whoosh, you get the real wisp of it, but without the wind actually going into the baffle of the microphone to make the, to make that sound. And dude, honestly, I think for a long time, I thought that this was going to be my Scratch.
Ooh. Okay.
But then as I read more about the album and did more research and watched him like record and play some of these things and looked at that house and that view, I could I just had this imagination of just coming up with this riff and recording this song as the storm is coming in off of the ocean. And then as the storm gets heavier, you get into the heavier part of the song.
Because it gets dark.
Dude, it does. And once I kind of had that vision, I was like, there's no way you could scratch that.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert, that's not going to be my Scratch.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of something like almost like early Pink Floyd. Like
Pink Floyd,
they would come up with.
Like it would have been on Piper.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Freaking Piper. All right. Expectation, Grim.
Yeah.
Dude, did you watch the video for this?
I did not. I do apologize for that. I did not.
So it is pretty cool, man. It's like they recorded it out in the woods, just like just like your standard music video where people are playing and lip syncing. But then the way they have it set up is like they must have taken 2 or 3 cameras that basically you can't really see the stitches, and it put it on some sort of like center console thing.
When you say the stitches, you mean see the other camera in the shot?
The seams.
The seams. Okay.
So basically it's,
I got you.
You could take it and kind of, it seems like that's what they did. Like you could almost unfold it and you could see everything. So it's like,
that's sweet.
It's like they put it almost like the camera's in the center, and then it just starts rotating, and it starts rotating. And as it rotates, though, like you can still see everyone and everything. I
did watch this.
They do a couple other
describe that.
Yeah, they do a couple other cool things and cool effects and whatnot. It's just, I don't know. I mean, dude, for probably not having a budget or anything, it's like somebody was like, yeah, all right, let's do this. And
that's pretty cool.
Let's go to the woods, let's smoke some weed, let's turn our cameras on. We're really riding the bikes. Let's do it.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
All right, Grim. The Bold Arrow of Time.
My favorite song on the album.
this is after I said Solitude Is Bliss, I was like, ooh, I don't know, this one's good.
Dude, God, that guitar riff is like that. That is most reminiscent to me of like the woman tone kind of, and it just so thick, dude.
It's so dark and sexy, man. And
but then it kind of goes into these psychedelic, you know, it really, that riff is so hot, dude.
So, dude, you don't watch a lot of TV, but you may remember, a few years ago, these 1800 commercials, tequila with Ray Liotta. Oh. And he'd walk in, and this was the riff. It was the opening riff from this song,
as it should be.
After he'd like, there'd be like this little scene, and then he'd like, there's this one of the videos is he walks into a bar, he orders his 1800, and then there's like these two guys at the end of the bar, and they're like drinking, vodka martinis or some crap, right? And he just looks at him. He's like,
"What the fuck is
pretty
that
much."
shit?
And so then he gets his shot or whatever. But actually, one thing that reminds me, going back to Cream a little bit, the song "Swabbler."
She walks like a bearded rainbow.
Yeah. There's the riff reminds me of this a little bit. It's
Yeah, I just like this riff better. And what I like is how it starts with just one guitar, and then there's like an octave below it, and then there's like a bass, and then there's like fuzz, and when it all just comes in, it's just so thick, dude. And that is like that tape saturation sound.
Oh, it's so
now,
good.
Regardless of this whole business that I've discussed probably too much at length about this analog saturation, I am going to put my money on that they had tube amps and that they cranked those tube amps, because tube amps, when you crank them up, they really break up like that. And if you can crank those shits up, they can really distort very much in the same way, because it's analog equipment that you're pushing to the point where it's not necessarily meant to be pushed.
Nope.
But it's so awesome when you do.
Push it. All right, Grim. Runaway Houses, City Clouds.
Yeah.
Long song.
I feel,
it's over 7 minutes,
like
man.
it's almost like the continuation, like Jeremy Storm is still going on.
Oh.
You know, and like this is like the continuation of that.
The continuing story of Jeremy Storm.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I'm sure all you Beatles fans got that reference.
I hope so. Because if you didn't, dude, watch
over.
the White Album episode there, cousin.
Yeah, it'll really help our statistics.
Oh, yeah. But I like the song because I think it has kind of that similar to the Bold Arrow of Time, where there's these heavy parts and then there's these like psychedelic breaks kind of, and
yep, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, dude, it definitely. And then there's this just really, really long jam at the end. So it's it's pretty cool. Last song, I don't really mind.
Oh, dude, I don't either. I love this song.
Yeah. It's definitely it has a real upbeat feel to it, man. And I kind of like I like the way he sings, but I really like the way he sings the part, but I don't. And then there's kind of like this beat, really, right? It just leaves it, right? He just like leaves it sit there for a second. And really, yeah, it's so cool.
But
man.
I don't. Yeah. One thing I've really noticed about this song, and this is a real like nerdy thing, is the snare drum. It has something where they produce the snare drum hits in a way where it almost like gets bigger with the hit, which is I don't want to say
that stood out to me.
Yeah, I don't want to say reminiscent of what they would call in the 80s as gated reverb, which I'm sure we'll get into that in an album that's a whole different thing, but it's similar in the sense that when they would produce stuff with gated reverb, like the sound, instead of like, if you look at a snare drum on like a digital recording software, there's a big hit and then it sinks down quick because of that, right? But it's almost like with this one, they have that initial hit and it almost like grows a little bit from that before it cuts out abruptly.
I gotcha.
And I know it sounds nerdy and that's just me, but it's interesting to hear that and to think about how they made that, because it almost becomes like a sweep, like, you know?
Yeah, right. So it is cool.
Sorry for that tangent, but
that's all good.
I like the snare drum, and I like that weird synth break in the middle.
Yeah, there is that, it's just real, fuzzed out. It gets like
real thick.
Yeah, real.
And there's
thick.
Almost like it sounds like bird. It's not bird.
Yeah, there's all these strange noises in the background.
Yeah,
and
like
stuff.
little like birds tweeting or something.
Yeah. And then it cuts right back into, but I don't really mind. All right, Graham, we are at the end of the album. It is time to scratch this. I have no idea who scratched last, so why don't you scratch first?
Okay.
It's not a trick question.
Well, yeah, I know. And this is, like they're all hard ones. Some are easier than others. This is a hard one because I think this album is so wonderfully done, and how there is such a consistency of sound, yet it still is all different.
Definitely.
I'm going to scratch Expectation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's not because I don't like the song, but it just that kind of jumpy, well, I don't know. If I had to go from Jeremy Storm into the Bold Arrow of Time, like, I would not be pissed off.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I feel like, after Jeremy Storm, just having this continuation of this dark, sexy kind of, intro would really work. That would really work. So
but Jeremy Storm is the easy one to me, and that's why once I watched those videos and I saw how he recorded the album, and I thought of just like sitting there plucking around on your guitar as the storm's coming in and writing that song, and I was like, okay, not happening. I like this. Yeah. And not that I didn't like it before, but I like that scene.
Totally. And I actually had Jeremy Storm on my live a few here because I thought we might go into overtime. So I was like, I don't know. And Jeremy Storm was one of them. But after you sold me on the story, man. I kind of dig that. I really, really dig that. But so I'm going to go with Runaway House's City Clouds.
I understand that. I'm definitely not going to give you a WTF-ITS on that one, because that was probably like my B for scratching.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me is it is a longer song, and not that I mind. Hey, I love it. I mean, dude, I could listen to Shine on You Crazy Diamond.
Dude, I don't really mind.
I don't really mind. But for me, I guess compared to the other songs, it doesn't really do anything, and I could easily go from the Bold Arrow of Time into I Don't Really Mind and Ride In, Fade Out.
I cannot argue with that logic.
Can't argue with that logic.
Yeah.
Why would you want to? Well, I think that's about to wrap it up, but we want everyone down below. We obviously know you've already liked, subscribed, but we'd love for you to comment below and let us know what track you would scratch. Let us know what track is your favorite. Let us know what Tame Impala album is your favorite.
I would like that too. And I really like that you said, let us know what you would scratch and what's your favorite, because I'm always interested to know people's favorites. And I think we kind of neglected that ourselves early on, and I'm glad that we kind of highlight that now. So please do. Exactly.
Well, all right, Grim, this was another fantastic episode. I'm glad we finally got it out.
It was because there was some technical difficulty. I mean, we had our own power internet outage on this one.
Like last month when we tried to record it. Yeah.
Yeah. So. And then today almost kind of went awry too. So here we are.
Dude, there was about a billion things that could have gone wrong. So let's just stop it now while we've got it in the can. All right.
Batteries are running and
they are. Yes. All right. It's time to go.
Thank you for hanging with us.
The Dude Grim Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by Moore and the Tims. Copyright 2021, The Dude and Grim Show.